welcome to our first episode of Influential Wellnesspreneurs. My name is Sebastian and I'm the Wellnesspreneur expert. I help therapists and wellness business owners to avoid the digital overwhelm, fill their books with their ideal clients, and serve the digital world with confidence and ease. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Robyn Chuter. She is the hard case cracker and successful owner of Empower Total Health. She has several degrees around the health and wellness area, received with honors and medals. She even wrote a thesis about how a membership of a Facebook group can help people stick to a whole food plant-based diet. I absolutely love that, and it's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have her here. And she also has more than 20 years of experience as a naturopath and has been one of the top 25 most popular health and fitness services in 2016. My goodness, Robyn, isn't that a successful and busy woman that you are? Welcome. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Yeah, it's funny when you hear back from somebody else the things that you've done. You think, did I do that? Yeah, I guess I did.
And much more. I only named a few, so that's really impressive and amazing. And I feel very honored and happy to have you here. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be your very first guest. That's quite an honor.
Thank you. Look, my first question to you is, after talking to, mentioning all these things that you have done, how did you get into this? Like, what was your why? Why was that your choice of path?
That's such a good question, because when I was in high school, I wanted to do so many different things. I wanted to become a psychologist, an archaeologist, a sociologist, a barrister, an English teacher, a novelist. There were so many things that I was interested in and wanted to do. And when I graduated from high school, I got access to every faculty, every course in every university in the country, and I still did not know what I wanted to do. So I did what you do in that circumstance. I enrolled in a Bachelor of Arts.
That's very stereotypical, isn't it?
in philosophy, government, and economic history. And I discovered about 6 weeks into it that I really had no idea what I was doing there. And so I dropped out of university, and I spent the next couple of months trying to figure out what is it that I want to do. And I realized that I'd always been the kind of person that people come to when they have problems. And my father by that stage had been developing a lot of health problems, very much chronic Western lifestyle diseases. So things like esophageal reflux and gallbladder disease, gallstones. And eventually he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And I thought, well, I'd like to be able to help people with things like that. But I didn't want to do medicine. I'd never been interested in medicine. I was never impressed by doctors. When I'd seen them as a kid, they didn't really seem to do that much from what I could figure out. And so I wasn't interested in that. But actually, a high school teacher of mine suggested that I look into naturopathy, and I thought, that's a good idea. And that was that. So it wasn't this sort of lifelong passion. I stumbled into it sideways, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I was very, very fortunate in that I absolutely loved it from the get-go. I loved the study of particularly nutrition, and then I loved the application of it. So once I graduated, I was only 23 when I started in private practice, which I look back on now and think, goodness me, that actually was quite a big step.
Yeah, massive.
I had a clientele from the get-go because I had been working as an osteopathic assistant while I was at naturopathic college, and so people already knew me. And so I was able to pay the bills from day one, which was great. Yes, and I built it up from there.
But very good. So, I think one of your driving kind of turning points was seeing chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease or diabetes in your family.
Yes.
But also seeing it in the world.
Yes. So starting with my family, I have a really, really terrible history of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And of course, as health practitioners know, those conditions are linked. So my dad, as I mentioned before, became a type 2 diabetic, or was diagnosed with type 2 diabetic when I was in my late teens. He eventually ended up on insulin, and he had a heart attack when he was 74 and died, from my point of view, incredibly prematurely. His father was also a type 2 diabetic who had died of a stroke 15 years before I was even born. My mother's mother was also a type 2 diabetic who died of a heart attack. So just about, on both sides of the family, all of these people with diabetes and the terrible complications. Diabetes is an awful disease, People go blind from diabetic retinopathy. They develop kidney failure. They develop neuropathy, which is this awful pain for which there's no medical treatment. But there is a dietary treatment. And so as I got into the study of nutrition in particular and found out that these conditions were preventable, number one. So that meant that I didn't have to be scared. I didn't have to be fearful because I had this awful family history. I didn't have to go through my life thinking, when is the other shoe going to drop? When am I going to be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes? So it was just like, okay, diabetes is caused by this, this, and this. So don't do those things. Do the opposite. Do everything that's protective against diabetes, and I'll be fine. And then actually applying that to people who came to me for health advice and seeing the effects, that they could get off their medications, they could stop injecting insulin, they could get off their high blood pressure medication. That just totally sealed.
Amazing. And I think that's the big thing, right? Like the two-edged sword. It is an awful disease, but it's an awful preventable disease.
Yes.
Yeah. And but what were some things that you had overcome to succeed? I mean, you had all these rewards, and you're running a successful global business. I mean, you're servicing clients all over the world now. So what were some things that you had to overcome to succeed in terms of your business growth?
Actually, and this is, it's kind of an embarrassing thing to admit, but what I had to overcome primarily was my own belief system, in that I like, and this is, you see this so commonly in therapists, in health practitioners. There's this sense that I had that it was somehow unethical to charge for what I was doing, or to charge an appropriate amount to compensate me for the years that I spent studying. I mean, we're talking a 4-year full-time naturopathic diploma, and then another, by that stage, I was working full-time. So to do my graduate diploma of counselling, that was 2 years part-time, and then a 4-year part-time Bachelor of Health Science, and then most recently 2 years doing a health science honours. Well, all of that is like an enormous investment of time and money and considerable effort. And I had to overcome my own reluctance to charge a rate that was commensurate with my investment in my education and my expertise. So I'd also grown up in, I suppose, although my dad ended up as a flight engineer for Qantas, he'd very much come from working class roots. And so I had some of that working class reluctance to sort of do what I perceived as being what unethical rich people do. It's crazy now when I look back on it, like, charge for what I was doing. So I had to do a lot of work on my own mindset, and actually EFT, which I got into about probably 10 years into my practice, was really, really helpful for that in challenging my own beliefs. So that was problem number one. Problem number two was that when I first started my practice, we didn't have the internet. I mean, this was 1995 when I opened my doors. And so there was no, you didn't blog, you didn't have a website. I had to do a lot of just, promoting what I was doing in the local community. So I did talks at all sorts of venues, Probus clubs and senior citizens clubs and all manner of things, and they're not necessarily the most receptive audience to my message, but it honed my public speaking skills. So that was, again, I mean, that was a challenge in the sense of finding audiences that were open to my message. But in rising to that challenge, I really honed and refined my ability to present to the general public in a way that they find interesting and engaging, and they want to learn more about it.
Yeah, and which probably helped with the first problem as well. It increased confidence and made you aware of your value. And so I find it interesting. Look, you said it's embarrassing to say that. I think, well, no, I don't think so. I know, I hear it from so many people that they all have to do, and it doesn't matter in what stage of business they are. There are always new belief systems. There are always some deeply ingrained belief that we have about ourselves, not the perception about ourselves, which makes us not, giving ourselves the green light to charge what we are really worth.
Yes.
It obviously comes with the problem to know what you're really worth. But that's your market telling you, right? You have to use your market to tell you what you're worth. And
yes.
And I find it if I think about what you said, you did your profession because of what you wanted to do, because of your family and all these problems that are out there, and you wanted to obviously help people, and you want to help as many people as you can. And now the paradox is that you actually can only help many people if you enable yourself to charge enough, to make enough profit, to have a life that is, where you can thrive. Only then you can actually deliver your best service. But we look at it the other way around, don't we?
Oh, you are so 100% correct there. If you're undercharging, then you're overstressed. You're having to see, or you're trying to just sort of find enough clients to kind of fill your books so that at the rates that you're currently charging, you're earning enough money. Then you end up very, very burnt out. I know that I also put a lot of additional time into each consultation. So there might be research to do beforehand. There might be treatment plans to write up afterward. And if you're not actually charging sufficient for the time that you've seen that person, then all of that other time that you put into it is essentially unpaid. The other thing is that if you are undercharging for what you do, you can end up resenting it. And I can honestly say, I mean, I've been in practice for 23 years now. I've never suffered burnout. And I think a lot of that is because I love what I do. But it's also because, before I got to the stage where I could get burnt out, I'd started cracking that code in terms of figuring out what do I need to charge so that I can have enough clients to pay my bills, but also so that I can have some days in the week when I don't see clients, and I have the time and the mental space to work on projects that grow my business.
Yeah, or even projects, people say some people cannot afford my services. Now, if you have this free time, then you can actually say, well, now is once a month I have a pro bono day. And you can help all these people who can't afford your services because that's what you want to do. But if you're undercharged, you're burned out and you're stressed, whenever you get a moment of time to free, you need that for yourself to recover.
Absolutely. And particularly as wellness practitioners, we need to be walking the walk, I mean, if you're telling someone who's come to see you that they need to take time off, they need to meditate, they need to make sure that they set aside time for exercise, and you're sitting there just frazzled and burnt out, you're not exactly credible, are you? It's like going to see a personal trainer who's overweight. You'd sort of look at them and say, well, it's not working out well for you, buddy. I don't know if I want to take your advice.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Same. Robyn, what is currently you thinking? We talked about it a little bit already, but what is currently the biggest issue you think that wellnesspreneurs or people like you in your niche face at the moment in terms of growing? And you said a little bit, but can you extend on that a little bit or a bit more?
I actually think that the biggest problem that practitioners are facing now is what I would say is the dark side of the internet, in that any Tom, Dick, or
The
Harry.
dark web? Or what do you mean?
No, I learned about the dark web from my teenage son, and I started thinking I probably don't want to know anymore about what he's doing on there. So the dark side of the web is that, for what I see is this proliferation of self-appointed experts who put up a website. And look, I mean, I'm totally in favour of free speech and a free web and all the rest of it, but any unqualified person can whack up a website, start a blog, and start putting themselves out there as being an expert. And they may write articles or do videos that actually sound a bit kind of sciencey and convincing. And then the average member of the public, when they go looking for answers to their health issues, they Google it, because that's what you do now. And they come across all of these, this babble of voices saying, eat fat, don't eat fat, eat more animals, don't eat any animals, eat some animals, eat only grain, grass-fed animals, eat these plants, don't eat these plants. Plants make you sick. And so for people who actually have qualifications and have studied nutrition and biochemistry and anatomy and physiology, they're actually in competition with completely unqualified people who will sell programs, or they have books, or they have, you can enroll in their course to heal your gut, or, fix your acne, or whatever the heck else it is that people are flogging. And so what genuinely qualified and experienced practitioners have to do is to set themselves apart from that rabble.
Yeah, basically.
So that the public sees them as being credible, because our credibility as experts in this space is actually being undermined by the sort of the Wild West spirit of the web.
You're right. That happens online as well, and you need to find a way and how you can overcome this. And there are certain ways of doing it, because online, again, is also a science.
Yes,
absolutely right. So Robyn, so maybe what we're now really interested in is like what are your, let's say, free top tips on how to overcome these issues? Maybe about your self-belief, your there was no internet. How did you maybe get these talks, for instance? Would be very interesting back in the late 90s, and also online. That's what I'm mostly interested. What do you do online? What works for you online?
Yes. Okay. Let's start with overcoming the beliefs then, because that's related to the second question that you asked, which is how do you get these speaking gigs and so forth. And so you really need to figure out what are your limiting beliefs, and that is probably best done with the assistance of somebody else, because we can't see the tips of our own noses, okay? So it's very, very helpful to work with somebody else who can help you identify what are your limiting beliefs around your value, your expertise, your knowledge. And once you've worked on that, again, my favorite tool for that is definitely EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. I've just found that so transformative in my own life and in my clients' lives. So after that, when you've got some sense of your own worth and your credibility and your expertise, and this is assuming that you have some, okay? So I'm assuming that the people listening to this have actually done sufficient training that really they are or are capable of becoming experts in their field, as opposed to Joe Blow health blogger. Okay, so then what you need to do is figure out, well, who is your audience? Who do you want to speak to? And then where do they live? Where do they go? Where do they meet? And so early on, I found the Natural Health Society, which is a small organisation and even smaller now than it was then. But I submitted, for example, articles to be published in their magazine. And when they were accepted, And I knew that they had a conference coming up. I'd just contact the executive director and propose topics for a talk that I could give. And after I'd done that and he was impressed with what I could do, he invited me back. So if your audience is, say, let's just say mothers of young children, where do they go? Well, you'll likely find them in play groups. You might find that they take their children to a library. Now, libraries are always on the lookout for interesting speakers. I know my local library service has regular talks. They're mostly author talks, and so if you have written a book, even if it's self-published, then they would love to have you along. I did a talk at our local library group, and we got the biggest audience of anyone that they'd ever had. When I say we, it was a friend of mine. She'd actually published the book, but she's very shy, and so she asked me to come and do the talk. Well, we got more people show up to that talk than any author they'd previously had, including Richard Adey, the ABC radio presenter. His was the biggest attendance that they'd ever had up to when they had us.
Wow.
And we packed out their room. So local libraries are a great way to get in front of the public in your local area. And then, I've forgotten your third. Oh, yeah. So what can you do online? Okay. So again, write content or produce content such as videos. You can start your own YouTube channel. It's really easy. Facebook Lives are a great way of doing this now. And get your carefully researched and well-referenced take on the health issues that you're focusing on out there in the public. So I have literally hundreds of articles on my website, and if they relate to any health or nutrition topic at all, they are referenced to the absolute hilt. That's actually become my calling card, if you like. And some kind of digital marketing experts will tell you, don't put too much complicated content on your web. People don't want to read that. Keep it simple and lots of pretty pictures and all of that. And I disagree with that, because it's such a credibility builder for me. People are often, I'm just trying to think if I do any paid advertising at all. Yes, I do have a listing on natural therapy pages. That is the only paid advertising that I do. Virtually all of my clients are referred to me either by other clients, or they're referred to me through Facebook groups that I am a member of and that I contribute to. And so when people are recommended to see me, they go and check out my website, and they'll have a mosey around and read some articles, and they'll see that everything is referenced, and I hyperlink to their, the published literature to document or back up what I say. And after reading a few of these articles, people sort of say, oh my goodness, she knows what she's talking about. And they fill in the application form to see me, and bam, I've got myself a new client. It didn't cost me a cent. And that content, of course, goes into my weekly newsletter. So besides my clients, I have a subscriber base, and they receive my newsletter every week. And so they're getting an article, coming across their bows on Monday morning, which could be on any number of different topics, because I have very broad interests. I don't niche, by the way. I know that's the advice in the field, but I don't do it.
That's all right.
I have a low boredom threshold, and the thought of focusing on just one thing for the rest of my life makes me want to stick a fork in my own eye. So I have broad interests across physical and mental health, across male health, female health, children's health, the health of the elderly. You name it, I'm interested in it. And so my weekly newsletter then lands in the email inbox of all these thousands of people on my list. And it may not be relevant to them, but they have an auntie or a boyfriend with that problem, so they can forward that article on to them. And in that way, I expand my reach. And so that one piece of content, which I send out in my weekly newsletter, that then sits on my website. It's searchable. I make sure that it's got the right keywords from an SEO point of view, and so people looking for info on that can actually find my article and then, apply to come and see me.
Amazing.
And again, this goes back to the point I made. Yeah, this goes back to the point I made before, that you actually have to be charging a rate for your services that is sufficient, that it frees you up so that at least one day out of the week you're not seeing clients, and you can spend that time writing articles, filming YouTube videos, putting on Facebook Lives, and doing all these other things to actually get your message out to the world.
Yeah. Get yourself out there. Yeah. Share your passion with the world, I always say. That's very true and very important. Yeah. And we have a day every week. We call it Kick-Ass Content Day. And it's always on Thursday. And I don't book any appointments in, right? Like, first if someone asks me, and it's hard. It's hard to say, you have this day. Someone says, oh, really busy. We actually can only do Thursdays. And you're so tempted to say, actually, you have to stay free, actually, but it's not, right? So you have to treat as if you're completely out on that day, and you have to keep it free. And that's so powerful to then work on your better business rather than just always in your business.
I agree that it's very hard. And when I first started allocating, initially it was one day of the week. Mine was Thursday too. I would cut into that if a client said, "Oh, I have Thursday off," and then after a while I got really fierce about it. And now I make it clear I do not see clients on Thursday. And then when I went back to uni to do honours, I realised, okay, I can squeeze in some of the tasks on various other days, but I actually have to have a full day set aside for my uni day. And so I don't see clients on Thursday or Friday. And even though I've finished honours, I'm now writing up my thesis for publication in a medical journal, and so I keep Fridays free, although I am talking to you on Friday. But you have to get fierce. You do have to get fierce about it and just say, no, that's my day. Because even seeing one client breaks the flow for me. It's no longer a writing day if I'm seeing a client.
Yeah.
Apart from anything else, I actually have to, get in my work clothes and do my hair, and whereas Thursday for me is like grunge around in shorts and don't worry about what I look like, because no one's going to see me.
Well, exactly. Yeah. It's exactly right, and that's so true. And I get it so often from people that I talk to, maybe potential clients, and say, like, I don't have the time. Well, this is the way of freeing time. You allocate one day, and even if you start just one day a month, right? I started with 1 day a month. I said, okay, 1 day a month, I'm gonna only do this, and then you reap the rewards. You may increase your prices a little bit. That's my best recommendation to everyone. Just tomorrow, your price is 20% up. Just do it. Don't be afraid of it. I know, your therapist is one that like to work for some for cupcake and some water. Unfortunately, you can't pay your energy bills with that, right? So you got to.
You sure cannot.
No, you sure cannot.
No. In terms of fees, it is unfortunate that if you're charging what you're truly worth, there will be a certain proportion of the population who genuinely can't afford that. I have a pretty generous concession rate which I offer to full-time students, people on unemployment benefits, age pension and so forth. But then there are other people who just are on a low income and they don't qualify for that. And it's hard, but I can't see them at a rate that they could afford, which is why I started a group program, which is very, very low cost. It's only $19 a month. And most people can afford that, even if they're on a low income. And it gives them access to me through live online events that I run, I should say, so that they can still get a lot of questions answered. They can't get the one-to-one, but they do get access to me in other ways. So that's or your idea of doing a pro bono day. That's also something I never thought of, to be honest. Thank you for giving me that idea. So that's one way that you can do it. Yeah. But the thing is that if you're charging at a higher rate, people perceive you as an expert. Now, again, hopefully you are, and it's justified that you charge that. I think some people charge higher rates than maybe they should based on the level of expertise. But people will go and pay $300 to see a medical specialist for 15 minutes. So when you look at it that way, I think a lot of people who are genuinely good at what they do are undercharging, and people would pay more and respect you more if you charge more.
Yeah. And I'd like to just state this again, what you said just before in terms of online. If you do enable yourself by maybe charging a bit more to actually work on your business and put up content online, that actually, if it's valuable content, which it always should be, which works best online, that actually gives many, many people constant 24/7 access to your best advice. And you should not be afraid of putting this up, because if you do it in the way as we just talked about, then it will become actually very, very valuable for those who can't afford you, who won't, you will never get as a client, but you can still help, but then help you to refer other people who may be able to afford you to you, so you can.
Let me give you some very specific examples of how that works for me. So I mentioned before that I'm a member of a number of Facebook groups, and these groups are across my various interests. So they're either vegan Facebook groups or the Whole Food Plant-Based Aussies Facebook group, which is actually the group that I did my honours thesis on. And so what will often happen in these groups is that someone will ask a health or nutrition related question. And I don't have a lot of time for Facebook. I'm not on it very often, but at the end of the day, I'll check my notifications, and sure enough, someone in that group has tagged me to bring me into that discussion or to refer me to that post. And they've suggested so by tagging me, they're basically inviting me to come in and share expertise. Now, sometimes the original poster doesn't have the money to see me, or for some other reason it's not viable. But when I put an answer in, and frequently as part of that answer, I will pop a link to an article that I've written that's on that subject. And because I have hundreds of articles on every conceivable topic, there's usually one that I can pull from. And so I'll give a brief answer, I'll put a link to the article, and then not just the original poster will read that, but anyone else who's on the thread. And lo and behold, sometimes it's the original poster who will then, private message me on Facebook, or I'll find that they've just got onto my website and they've gone to the Work with Robyn button, and they've filled in the form and they've applied to be a client. But what very often happens is that half a dozen other people who read that thread will say, goodness, I need help with that too. Or alternatively, I don't need help with that, but I read the article, she seems to know what she's on about, and so I get applications from them as well. And so Facebook, I've never done any paid advertising on Facebook, never. I get so many clients from Facebook groups because I have online content that I can share in those groups. Yeah. So again, that one piece of content that might have taken me several hours to write, because if you're writing something fully referenced, it often does, but it has this, it's basically evergreen, right? So, occasionally I'll go back to an article and think that's been out of date, and then I can update it. But that one piece of content is able to serve so many different needs.
Yeah, and it becomes an asset. It becomes an asset for your business. And that's the way of getting out. That's like, if you look at every successful business, why number one reason why they get out of being caught up in time and money and become actually free and thrive is by building assets for your business. And a good piece of content becomes an asset for a business you can use in many, many forms. I mean, you can write a blog article, you can record it with your own voice, record yourself with a video, you can record it with your own voice, you can do a podcast, you can put it on your video channel, you can do a PowerPoint slide and put it on SlideShare. I mean, there's so many ways you can content rotate one piece of really highly quality content, and these are the things that we are teaching, and it's really great that you say that. So building assets for your business is really, really good.
Yeah,
Robyn, this
that's such a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Awesome. This has been so great. So just for everyone, I just would like to kind of summarize this again, what we got today. So everyone struggles with belief systems. I think that's so such a big valuable thing. And to overcome this, Robyn's suggestion is to use EFT. So I will definitely link to down in the comments and in the description below the video, you will find some links to EFT and Robyn's website. And there's lots of really cool stuff, as you just described, to consume and learn and educate yourself. So that's really, really, really cool. Get talks and speeches. I think that's a wonderful tip. And create content to build assets online to it. And I think it's all about positioning yourself as the expert that you really are, right? Becoming then this
yes. And of course, that's right. And of course, a very, very key piece of content for you is your gift to reward or thank people for subscribing to your mailing list. And so there's a lot, I mean, this is one of those tried and true marketing strategies, but there's an awful lot of just total time wasting guff. So put some real effort into creating that document or video or whatever it is that you're going to use as your bonus to entice people to subscribe to your mailing list. Mine is called the five steps to breaking bad habits, and so that's what you get when you subscribe to my mailing list. And it's not some silly little throwaway report. It's actually a worksheet. So it's got instructions for the questions to ask yourself and space for people to write that in. And it's really interesting. I often get people actually sending me their responses to that. And I don't invite them to do that. I don't disinvite them. I don't invite them to do it. But they will often come in, or sometimes they'll come for their appointment, which is a completely separate booking process on my website. But they'll come in for their appointment and they'll show me, look, I did the 5 habits and here it is, or the 5 steps to breaking habits. So that's really, really an important thing for you to do is to create that very, very high value piece of content for that encourages people to join your mailing list, which is, of course, your mailing list is then your way to stay in touch with people and keep yourself on their radar.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so good that you say it again, because we just recently had a wellness clinic here in Canberra, and they spent, I don't know, like 20 or 25,000, something ridiculous on their new website when they first started. And it was done by a big digital agency, which didn't really care about these relatively small guys. And the website had nothing like that on it. And it was just, didn't make them any money. Like literally, not, like I said, I get no requests. I get a couple of calls now and then. Some people say they found them online, but nothing happened. We went in, we built this one little asset, this one freebie, we call it, to get people on the mailing list. We worked out some emails on how to nurture these people who sign up then, and encourage them, give value, and then in the same day encourage them to come in for an appointment. We put some call to actions on the website, and within a couple of months, the website was, for an additional, we charged them a very small price compared to what they being charged for their big website, and it just turned it all around. And now they get 2 to 3 requests a week for something really small. And we just started, right? So that's so important. And you're absolutely right that smaller the gift is very important. Robyn, is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, one final tip to get yourself out there in the media. Start or get yourself on the mailing list. I can't remember the exact terminology. A source bottle. Okay, so this is how you get yourself into the media. Print media, television media, radio, and so forth. It's mostly print and TV. But Source Bottle covers Australia and New Zealand. I believe there's a UK branch as well. Source as in SOURCE. It's very easy and it's totally free to set up an account with Source Bottle, and then you can nominate your areas of interest, and every day you get a daily email digest. And it's basically mostly journalists who are looking for experts or content in particular areas. And so I have got print media interviews, I have contributed to various articles through answering source bottle call-outs, and it's a fabulous way to get yourself on journalist maps, because if you get into the media, then, instantly you're seen as being an expert. I mean, I've been on television once debating a very prominent nutritionist, and that someone uploaded a clip of that to YouTube, and I still get people commenting on that and coming to see me because of that.
24/7, it's always there. Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. Robyn, this is so great. Thank you so much for joining in today.
It's a pleasure.
So valuable. Thank you so much. Always, it's been really, really great. I invite everyone to subscribe to on the button to hear more from us and great interviews like that.